Almost everything we do involves energy. From making coffee in the morning to sending rockets to the moon, energy is needed for so many reasons, and over time, the types of energy we use has changed drastically. How did we get here on energy?
Solar power has become dominant in powering American homes in the last decade. Over the past few years, production costs of solar panels have gone down. And as a result, the amount of solar power in the US is able to power over 12 million homes. As well as being a good source of electricity, harnessing solar power does not produce carbon emissions. However, solar power does have its drawbacks, such as trying to find an optimal place for them to absorb sunlight, as well as having a high cost to install, requiring a large area for installation, and not being able to produce energy at night.
Nuclear power is one of the most dangerous forms of energy. The explosion at Chernobyl is to this day the worst nuclear disaster. When a nuclear reactor failed at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in 1986, an explosion occurred due to poorly trained operating personnel that scattered dangerous levels of radiation across Ukraine. After the disaster, changes towards nuclear safety were established, and the world came to recognize the dangers of nuclear energy. Response teams were created in case of nuclear accidents similar to Chernobyl.
With the United States' support of Israel in the 1970s, the oil crisis in 1973 showcases how important oil is to America. American policymakers believe that Middle Eastern countries cannot afford to lose the revenue they gain from the US, so they told the public not to fear the spike of oil prices. Their predictions turned out to be incorrect when an oil embargo, led by the members of the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, was employed. The supply of gas in the US had run out and the prices of oil skyrocketed. This period of time showed how crucial oil is to America.
In 1926, a scientist named Robert Goddard successfully launched the first rocket powered by liquids. The fuel was composed of liquid oxygen as the oxidizer and gasoline as the fuel. Before being able to be fueled by liquids, small rockets contained solids as fuel. The problem with rockets that contain solid fuel is that they cannot be throttled up or down, meaning we could not do a moon landing, dock to a space station, or be able to land and reuse the core stages of the rocket, which is the most expensive part. This feat was accomplished in 2015 by SpaceX.
Kerosene was very important to have before electrical lighting was created. Kerosene was used in oil lamps for lighting and was produced on a very large scale. It was eventually passed by gasoline in the 1920s because gasoline was needed for the internal combustion engine, which was used in vehicles of all kinds.
The coal strike began in May of 1902 and ended in October. The strike started in eastern Pennsylvania, where the majority of anthracite coal was mined. Anthracite coal is very solid and carbon-rich coal, which makes it ideal for industrial and domestic use. On May 12, 1902, the railroad companies that operated the mines refused to meet with representatives of the labor union. Workers requested better wages, shorter work weeks, and recognition of their union. These are known as bread and butter issues, the basics in union negotiations with their employer. Their requests were denied, and as a result, production of coal stopped and prices doubled. As negotiations were futile and winter was creeping closer, President Theodore Roosevelt became fearful that Americans would face privation during the winter months. He then made an unprecedented move from any other previous Republican president. President Teddy Roosevelt sided with the workers and threatened the owners of the coal mines. If they did not give in to the demands of the workers, the president would nationalize the coal mines under a national emergency. Thus, the coal mine owners would lose power and profits. They decided to cooperate with the coal miners and compromise with their demands.
In 1888, Charles F. Brush was able to create a wind turbine capable of producing electricity. The contraption was a tall propeller spun by the wind. The propeller rotated a generator that produced around 12 kilowatts of power. Brush had created a way to create electricity without producing any carbon emissions. The invention of the wind turbine was the second type of power plant to produce energy without producing any carbon dioxide, which would contribute to global warming.
Humans had been using the energy from water currents for centuries. However, it wasn't until 1882 that we were able to harvest the energy produced by water currents. James Francis created the very first hydroelectric power plant capable of harnessing such energy. The dam would take in flowing water and use it to spin a turbine and create energy. The creation marked the first time humans had renewable energy.